some people have a home health aide coming in or a nurse that comes in to help them with various activities. So it's really kind of an overall assessment. There isn't any particular magic bullet. You don't automatically get it if you have trouble dressing. You don't automatically get it if you have trouble feeding yourself. But when you start to add those together and add some other limitations, yeah, you're probably going to get it.
And I think this would probably be a good time to mention something that I've certainly seen with a lot of our clients is the sort of insidious nature of increasing symptoms and how the assistance with daily living activities creeps up on you.
Welcome to the Victory Over VA podcast, a podcast about empowering veterans to overcome denied disability claims. Each week, we deliver critical insights to help you understand the disability process, veterans' benefits, and how to take control of your legal rights. Now here's your host, Attorney Francis Jackson.
Welcome to Victory Over VA. If you're a veteran struggling with the VA's disability system, or just want to make sure you're getting the benefits you've earned, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update that could change your life. I'm Kristian Terison, here with renowned veterans disability attorney Francis Jackson of Jackson and MacNichol. Jack has dedicated his career to helping veterans like you win the benefits you deserve, recovering millions of dollars for thousands of heroes. This podcast isn't just for veterans navigating the system, though. It's for their families, their friends, and anyone else who wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with those who served. So stick around, because we're here to make sure you get the support you need. Now, today's show dovetails with a recent episode we did on special monthly compensation. But this specifically is about aid and attendance benefits. What are they, how to apply, etc. So to begin with the basics, what are aid and attendance benefits?
Well, aid and attendance are a form of special monthly compensation that is available to veterans whose disabilities are so bad that they're no longer able to do routine activities of self-care, dressing, bathing, feeding, that sort of thing, and need other people to help them with that.
Okay, and so how do they fit within the larger picture of veterans' disability benefits?
Well, generally speaking, all of the special monthly compensation kind of sits on top of the regular scheduler benefits that are available to veterans based on disability. And that includes the aid and attendance.
Okay. And so who is eligible for aid and attendance benefits? Who can apply?
Well, there are two kinds of aid and attendance benefits. If a person is receiving non-service connected pension, they can apply for benefits. And if a person is receiving disability compensation, service-connected disability compensation, they can apply for benefits. So it's available in both the VA's disability systems, pension and compensation. And it's available for those who, as I said, are no longer able to do normal activities of self-care and require the assistance of another person.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard veterans or their families have about aid and attendance benefits?
Well, I think the biggest misconception that I've run into, there are a number, but the biggest one I've run into is that you can only get aid and attendance if your doctor will sign the aid and attendance form that VA has. So as you know, VA has a whole raft of forms for applying for different kinds of benefits. One of the forms that they have is specifically for aid and attendance. And the form calls for a doctor to fill out a portion of the form and sign it. However, it is not a requirement to get aid and attendance that you have to have a doctor sign that form. It's simpler. It will go more smoothly if you can get the doctor to sign the form. But that is not the only way to get there. And so if your particular treating physician is unwilling or just too busy to get around to signing the form, you can still apply for aid and attendance. It doesn't, You don't have to get the physician's signature on the form. You do need to submit the form if it's at all possible, although technically it's not required.
Okay. So there's sort of a continuum there. You can make it work without the form, but it's much better to have the form, and even better if you can have the doctor
That's
fill
exactly
out their piece
right.
and sign it. Okay.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I know getting a physician to put anything on paper can be a challenge,
Sometimes.
generally speaking.
And particularly for those who have mental health issues that affect their ability to function, it's often harder to get a family practice doctor, for example, or a treating nurse practitioner to sign the forms because it strays into areas that they're not as comfortable in sometimes.
Sure. So I know you mentioned that to qualify for aid and attendance benefits, the veteran in question has to be unable to perform the activities of daily living without assistance. But can you sort of dive into other eligibility requirements, or is that really
Well,
it?
that's pretty much it. Let me take these a piece at a time. If you're receiving pension, then just the showing that you can't perform the activities, in addition to the fact that you're already receiving pension, will be enough to make you eligible. If you have service-connected disability, essentially you have to be getting 100% or TDIU in order to kind of stack aid and attendance on top of that. But, you know, if someone is bad enough off that they can't perform basic activities of daily living, it would be unlikely that they wouldn't otherwise be eligible.
Yeah, this is a trend I've noticed with the VA is they'll have a preferred pathway. So in this case, for somebody receiving a disability compensation, being at that 100% compensation level would be preferred before going to aid and attendance. But if the facts or the reality of a veteran's situation are such that ADLs are really, that's activities of daily living. Throw a lot of acronyms and abbreviations out there. It's an
jargon here and there.
occupational hazard. But if they need help with the activities of daily living and it's clear from the facts, it's worth asking for at least.
Sure. The only tricky bit with service-connected compensation is the limitations that cause people to need assistance have to stem from service-connected conditions. So, for example, if someone has a 30% rated back condition, no other service-connected conditions, and then has a stroke that causes them to be unable to perform ADLs, but they're not able to get that stroke service-connected, then they won't be eligible for aid and assistance. It's got to be aid and attendance. It's got to be related to their service-connected conditions if they're in the compensation system. In pension, it doesn't matter.
Okay. And I guess if we can tease out the degree to which the veteran needs help with those activities of daily living, you know, I'm guessing it falls short of needing to be in a residential care facility. This could be a relative, family member, close friend who's
Yep.
providing the.
Often the spouse.
Yes, typically the spouse.
Yep.
But, you know, if they have an arm condition and need help brushing their teeth, for instance, would that be sufficient? Because, or does it have to be the whole?
No, it's these things are all just they're all fact-driven. So
Right,
it's
matter of
it's,
degree.
It's exactly that. It's a matter of degree. So it's kind of the overall impact. Now, with your example with an arm condition, they're probably not going to just have trouble brushing their teeth. They're probably going to have trouble feeding themselves. They're probably going to have trouble dressing. They're probably going to have trouble washing their hair. You know, it's so you have to look at the whole picture of what anyone would normally think of as kind of daily self-care activities and kind of look at, okay, this person can no longer do these, they can still do these, kind of where on the continuum do they land? And you know, there's no bright line to this. It's not like the VA counts them up and says, okay, you got to 4, that's enough. It doesn't work like that. It's looking at the impact of all the service-connected conditions, what activities those limit, and how much assistance the veteran needs from another person. As I said, typically the spouse, but it can be someone else, as you mentioned. Some people have a home health aide coming in or a nurse that comes in to help them with various activities. So it's really kind of an overall assessment. There isn't any particular magic bullet. You don't automatically get it if you have trouble dressing. You don't automatically get it if you have trouble feeding yourself. But when you start to add those together and add some other limitations, yeah, you're probably going to get it.
And I think this would probably be a good time to mention something that I've certainly seen with a lot of our clients is the sort of insidious nature of increasing symptoms and how the assistance with daily living activities creeps up on you.
Yep.
I had one case with a veteran who I talked to him and he said everything's fine, everything's like normal, but then I talked to his wife and she was saying, well, I have to help him get his compression socks on, and then I help him tie his shoes because he can't bend over and tie his shoes like he used to.
Yep.
And he was saying, oh, I mow the lawn, and I'm imagining him out there with a push mower. Well, no, he's got the fanciest lawnmower going. All he needs to do is hop in, turn the key, and he's just moving 2 levers, and it's a flat, easy lawn.
Yep. He's got the riding mower.
Exactly,
Yep.
the riding mower.
Yep.
And so there are really a lot of things to be looking at and to try and be mindful of, because even somebody capable of perhaps mowing the lawn with a riding mower could still need help with all the other ADLs.
Yep.
It's the kind of thing where, again, the cumulative nature of it
Yep.
makes it real hard to spot, because it's just, for the veteran, for his spouse, it was just the way it is.
Yep.
And the way it had been for years.
And you put your finger on it a minute ago when you said it's cumulative. People have various limitations from their service-connected disabilities, but those tend to increase with age. So they have a hearing disability, tends to get worse. They have a vision disability, tends to get worse. They have orthopedic conditions. You mentioned back, legs, arms. They all tend to get worse, and it's not typically a traumatic injury, and the result is overnight. It's that, well, today I could do this, but a year from now I can't do it, and it just gradually creeps up until suddenly you need aid and attendance.
And so you mentioned there's a special form for applying for aid and attendance.
There is.
What do you know the VA form designation?
I
off
don't
the top
remember
of your
the
head?
form number off the top of my head.
No worries. I'm sure Google search will turn it up for any of our viewers.
Yes.
If you're sophisticated enough to watch the podcast, you can find
You can
all
find
the
it
VA
online.
forms. But what are some tips you'd have for veterans on how to avoid mistakes with the form filling for aid and attendance?
Well, the place I would suggest that people start is look at your overall compensation situation. If you're already getting TDIU or less commonly are at 100% on the schedule, and you're starting to need help with things, think about it. If you don't have any other claims pending, you might want to file an intent to file form, because that's kind of a marker for VA. That'll let them start your benefits date with that form as long as you file within a year. So file the intent to file form, the 210996, I think it is, and then go to your doctor and have whoever helps you with things go with you, explain the things they help you with, and ask the doctor if he or she will fill out the form. That will get the kind of the smoothest path. If the doctor declines to fill out the form, you can still submit the form. You don't have to have it signed by the doctor and have that section filled in by the doctor in order to file the form. But what you will have to do is you'll have to convince the VA that you do have significant limitations in your activities of daily living. And so probably that's going to mean either a signed statement from the person that provides your help, or sometimes it's more than one person. Various people do various things. If that's the situation, you want statements from all of them, you can put that on the VA form 4138, that statement and support form. That's kind of the VA's kind of general purpose Swiss Army knife sort of form. So get those in and submit the aid and attendance form itself and get the supporting forms in. And you may need to go ultimately to an appeal and a hearing to get testimony from people and convince a veterans law judge. But if you're really truly having trouble with activities of daily living, and those things stem from service-connected disabilities, regardless of whether you're in the pension system or the compensation system, you are probably entitled. It is more likely than not that you will get the benefits if you pursue it.
And related to that, a question that I know is at the forefront of many of our viewers' minds: how long does it take? I know there's never a clear-cut answer.
There is not a clear-cut answer, and I'd be lying if I told you there was. But here's kind of how it goes. If you make the initial claim, the VA, depending on which office it gets assigned to and how busy they are and what kind of support you already have for the claim when you submit it, they're going to decide it's somewhere within the range of 3 months to a year. That's, it is extremely unusual for it to happen more quickly than that or more slowly than that. It's going to fall in that range. Once they make an initial decision, you have some choices. There are multiple options. You can file what's called higher level review, you can file a supplemental claim, or you can appeal to the board. And which way you go will determine the time. Higher level review typically doesn't take much more than 6 months. Sometimes it's faster, but keep in mind that higher level review is not particularly fruitful because it's asking the folks in the same office, simply literally at a higher level, a more experienced person in that same office, to look at the information they already had and not add any new information. So usually higher level review just gets you the same result you already had, whatever that was. And if it was a denial, then it's probably still a denial. I don't want to say that higher level review never works because that's not correct. Higher level review does work sometimes, but it's not the most frequent path to a good result. The next option is supplemental claim. The thing about supplemental claim is if you put in a claim, whether it's aid and attendance or anything else, and VA says, well, you might qualify, but you haven't shown us X, which we need, you can then, with supplemental claim, put in new evidence to cover X that was left out the first time or that they felt wasn't sufficient the first time. And so supplemental claim, again, is relatively quick. They take longer than higher level review. They're shorter than going to the board. Call it a year and a half, depends on whether they send you out for a compensation and pension exam, or whether they're particularly busy. It's variable, but it'll be slower than higher level review. It'll be faster than going to the board. If you think that your case is complex enough that it really requires an appeal to the board, then you are in for a long haul. If you're in the hearing lane right now, it's running 3 years or more. If you're in the evidence submission lane, which you probably need to be in one of those two, since typically you need to add new evidence to get over whatever the problem was with the decision in the first place. In the evidence lane, they're saying it's 18 months, but that's simply not true. Unless your case is advanced on the docket, you're probably looking at 2 or 3 years, even in the evidence submission lane. So it's a question of how you get there. And the reality is that the clearer your claim is, the easier it is to get granted at the initial level or on higher level review or on supplemental claim and not need to go to the board. But sometimes you just need to go to the board. The thing about going to the board is the board has more discretion. At higher level review and even supplemental claim, you have to have a round peg to put in the round hole. And with aid and attendance claims, that's not always the case. Sometimes there are some real oddities about what things you're having trouble with and why. So if you have one of those kind of outlier claims, it may well need to go to the board. And in that case, you probably are going to want to be in either evidence submission or the hearing lane. And the reality is the board's backed up and it's got a lot of cases pending and It won't be quick, but you may be able to get the case advanced on the docket if you are over 75, as many of the veterans who asking for aid and attendance are, or sadly you're in tough financial shape and you've had to file bankruptcy, or worse, you've been diagnosed with something that's potentially fatal. Any of those will get you advanced on the docket, as will being homeless. Hopefully none of those last three will apply to you, but if they do, then you can get your case advanced on the docket, and that will make it go faster. It will not make it go fast. Even advanced on the docket, cases are taking between a year and 2, but it's faster than 3 or 4. So there you are.
All right. And on that note, that's our episode of Victory Over VA for this week. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and join us again next week.
We very much hope to see you then.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Victory Over VA podcast. Make sure to visit our website, veteransbenefits.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, you might want to check out our free consultation to see how we can help you with your denied claim. Simply go to veteransbenefits.com and fill out the form. You fought for us. Now let us fight for you. And be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.